Hi and welcome to the So Many Things YouTube channel. I'm Tim, your host. Here you get to sew with the boys, quilt with the boys, embroider with the boys, and of course, mostly have some fun, and you might learn something along the way. Stay tuned! Hi and welcome to Sewing with the Boys. Today we're going to explore the JUKI 2000 QVP serger. This is an air thread serger, has 4 threads, and it's really easy to set up. So our quick little video is going to give you some tips and tricks on how to make that happen like magic. Let's get started. So you want to make sure your machine is set up properly. You'll want the proper needles in, or needle if you're only using one needle. And you want to use the right color thread and the types of thread to be used on the machine for the project you're going to be working on. You also want to have handy a pair of scissors and maybe tweezers. If your fingers are a little coarse, you might find it easier to handle the thread with the scissors because otherwise the thread might stick to your fingers as you're trying to feed it into the little hole. It's just a little trick thing some people have with working with a serger. Most sergers actually come with their own tweezers. So now we're going to change camera angles so we can get a better view of threading the machine and using the air thread feature. So we put our spools on the back. We have the proper needles in, and now we're going to start threading the machine. I have a catch tray here that's in my way, so I'm just going to pop it off and set it to the side. I'm going to open my door, which will expose my setup for my air threading. It also shows me where my tools are stored on this particular model. So the first thread I'm going to thread is going to be my lower looper. It's indicated here with the pink and the pink dot here on the top, and my threading path is really simple to follow. I'm going to pull my thread off the spool and come up through the wire harness above it. I'm going to come down and click it into the guide. That's this little piece back here on the back of the machine. You want to pull a down thread underneath it so that it comes out and to the front into the trough. I'm going to come down the front of the machine through the guide here. Now there's one little catch right here above where my hole is, where my opening is for my threading. So I'm going to come to the right of that and push the thread into that guide. Now I have to be careful that I get it all the way in so it latches or kind of catches in there and doesn't just fall out. So I'm going to pull that thread off to the side because on this machine I can thread both loopers at one time. I'm going to do the same process with the second thread, which is my upper looper. Pull the thread off the spool, come up through the wiring harness, get it caught in the guide in the back of the machine, fall down through the trough, down to the front, once again to that guide that's right above the holes. If I don't get into the guides, it's just going to flail there. It's not going to work very well for me. So now I've got thread down to here, but I have to get the rest of my machine set up. So I need to engage the paths for my air threader to work. That involves pulling this lever up. Now if you can see here in the video, maybe I'll get a close-up for you, that these tubes did not connect. In order to get those to connect, I need to turn the hand wheel on the side. I just turn the hand wheel like I normally would, rotating it towards me, and it will cause the tubes to connect once everything is aligned. It's like magic. Boop. There, they've snapped into position for me. Now you can see that path is complete, and my machine is actually now ready for me to put the thread into the air threading paths. So now I can put my thread into the tubes and thread the rest of the machine. This part's easy also because all I really need to do is get the thread started into the tube and the machine will take care of the rest of it. So I need to pull out enough thread from both of my threads. Remember, my lower looper and my upper looper. I need to pull out enough thread so that they'll travel through the path. I'm going to take the thread and make sure that the end is clean. That's what the scissors are for. If you have fuzzy ends, it's not going to work very well. So we're just going to trim these off so that they're nice and clean. Now, if you have coarse fingers, like I said before, putting it into the hole might be a little challenge because sometimes the thread will stick to your finger. That's where the tweezer comes in handy. So you just want to stick a little bit of the thread in there. You don't need to go trying to put 3 or 4 inches in. You just want to put in about 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. So I'm going to cut this thread off because it looks a little coarse to me. And I'm going to put the thread into its little hole here. You notice here on the symbol, there's no oiling in these holes. Do not lick the thread either. Moisture will cause the thread to stick in the tube and you won't get it to work right. So I'm going to put the thread into the tube. Once again, I'm going to use the tweezers because my fingers sometimes are a little coarse. And I'm going to put it down 3/8 of an inch, 1/2 an inch is good. I'm putting in small little increments to hold it in there. I have to be careful down here that I don't have my thread caught around any of my accessories. That'll keep the thread from traveling properly. So I'm going to come in here very carefully and unencumber the thread. So I need to run the machine, but I use the button here where it says air on because this is going to run the machine to generate the air for me. So I just press the button, and you can see here my threads have popped out the other ends. My loopers are now threaded. Now let's thread our needles so we can take advantage of our needle threader. We're going to come up off the spool like we did before and through the wire harness, down through the back of the machine and clip it into that guide in the rear. Come down the trough in the front and follow the guide. Now it's real simple because we're just going to lay it through the trough, come up over to the point here, and come up and around. We follow the color codes according to which needle we're threading. So I'm threading the green or the right needle, so I'm going to follow the green dot. So I'm going to come up and over the trough. You're going to find that the thread just slides into position for me. Now one thing to make it easier for your threads to travel is we can lift our foot. And our foot will open up our tension disc so our threads will travel through cleanly. I probably should have started with that at the beginning so that you know when threading your loopers, you should also have your foot up when threading your loopers. Now I'm at the thread guides here. I have one guide here, and then I have two guides above the needles. Those are little wire pieces that are sticking out for me. So I'm going to pull it into the first guide, and I'm going to come over and grab the second wire guide because that's for the right-hand needle. So now you can see I'm caught in the guide, and I'm ready to use my needle threader. But my foot's kind of in my way, so I'm going to lower my foot. So to get my needles in the right position for my needle threader, on the far hand side of my machine, there is a match space, a little marking on my hand wheel for me to match the position of the needle so that they work with the needle threader. It's not two lines. That match is a white space and a black line on the housing. So the space gives you a little bit of playroom. My needle threader has a left and right. That's what this switch here does. This actually will move the needle threader from the left needle to the right needle depending on which position I need to thread. So if I'm going to use the right needle and I want to use the right needle threader position, I push this lever down. Now I can push the needle threader down and it will pivot and lock into position for me. You notice I'm not having to hold the needle threader into position to use it. Now there's 4 prongs that are extending around the needle with a stylus coming through the eye of the needle. Now I simply need to snap my thread into it and see it's caught for me. So now I can simply lift up on my needle threader and it's pulled a loop of thread through the needles for me. Can you see it back here? That's my loop of thread. That's through the eye of the needle. That was pretty easy, wasn't it? Well, how do I do that for the other side? Well, the other side's the same process, except that I move my needle position up here. So I'm on the left needle position. Right needle position, push it down. Left needle position, push it over to the left. You'll see there's 2 arrows on the gray plastic portion also showing you one pointing to the right and one pointing to the left. So if I know if I pushed it to the right, I'm threading my right needle. If I pulled it to the left, I'm threading my left needle. That's pretty easy for threading a machine, isn't it? What will they think of next? Hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching.